Okay, so hopefully that should be us live. We'll give it a second and see if we start getting comments coming in. If anybody's watching, if they could send us a wee comment just to let us know that they can hear and see us okay, that would be great. Let's just see if we get anybody in. Okay. We seem to be streaming okay.
Okay, well, I'll just...
Shall we just get started?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Fáilte Academy Uisceabh Ila. Welcome to Isla Whisky Academy Live 3. And we want to say to you, Bliana Bheabhúr, because we haven't... This is the first time that we've had a broadcast this year. So Bliana Bheabhúr is Happy New Year. We want to wish you Happy New Year. So Bliana is year, Ve is good, and Uad is new. So it means good new year. So this is our host here, Neill Murphy, the Isla Whisky Academy kinship host.
Good evening. Or good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you're watching. It's nice to be doing this again, isn't it? The last one feels a long time ago. When was it again? Was it December or something, the last one now? Feels like it was quite a while back.
Yeah, I don't know if we even did one, and because we were going to do one, and then it was in the middle of Christmas and New Year, so we didn't, and then we had the hibernation break.
That's right. Yep. Yep. Oh, we've got Donna in. Hello, Donna.
Hello, Donna. How are you? That's nice. At least Donna will have good weather, not like the blooming gales and hurricanes that we've got in Ireland this week.
Glasgow's not much better. It has been horrendous the last week, and I think we've got a warning for snow overnight, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah. We might have trouble with the school buses.
So what we are going to do tonight is we are going to talk about distilleries, because we've got about 462 million. Hello, Leanne. Hello. Got about 462 million distilleries now in Islay, and another 4 or 6 in mainland Scotland. So we're going to talk about is this good or is this bad, or do we have an opinion on this at all? But before we start doing that, I'm going to tell you some exciting news. Hello, Fiona. Nice to have you with us. So the Isla Whisky Academy are having their first ever open day for the fish. So that is a huge thing. So you've got, Bowmore Distillery, the Frog Distillery, Ardnahoe Distillery, Isla Whisky Academy Distillery open day. So we're going to have an amazing programme that'll involve magical whiskey tastings, events. Hello, Alex. This is an Isla man here. Nice to see you. Pleased to have you on board, Alex. So the open day, I'll have millions of things. So it starts at 9:30 in the morning and it'll run till 7. And then I think that night we're going to have a band. There'll be a big event run with the Fish Committee and the Hall Committee, because it's in the Rins Hall, so it's down in Porthaven. So we're delighted to be part of that.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah,
I think it'll be great, Neill. So you better be here, or it'll be
trouble. That sounds like one I don't want to miss. Yeah, do you know I've still never been over for the Fish. I don't know how many times I've been in Islay, but I've never made it over for the Fish. So maybe this will be the one to come to.
We'll entice you from this. Greetings from San Francisco, Rick. How are you? Nice to have you with us. So will we start? There's other events for the Fish as well, Neill, that the Academy are hosting. So every day we're hosting something. So we're hosting on the Saturday, on the Monday, on the Tuesday, on the Wednesday. On the Wednesday, we're doing a 7-course tasting dinner in the Mackley Hotel. So that's exciting.
Very nice, yeah.
With 7 drams, that'll be a big formal event. And we're also doing a lovely event with Whisky Galore, the film Whisky Galore.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you come and you get 4 different drams throughout the story. So at certain times they lend themselves to getting a dram.
Right.
So we're going to, like, I'll do that. I'm hosting that. So that's in the wee cinema at Macri as well.
Right,
The
that
other
sounds really good.
So I think these events are for Faish. These 2 big events
Yeah.
are for Faish. But the other events that I'm going to host are the Isle of Whisky Academy ones. And we should have them up and ready for booking next week.
Excellent. That sounds brilliant. I did a couple of years back. We went to a film showing that did something a bit like that. It was for the was it the Water of Life film with the Jim McEwan one?
Yes.
And they had laid out sort of 4 drams at the side that you sort of, it was for distilleries that appeared during the film. And you know, you could drink along as those distilleries came on screen, you know.
Cool. It's sort of like that, but there's certain bits in the film. I mean, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the film, and there's bits where the islanders are down for a dram, so you're not, the audience will not be down for a dram, they'll get a dram then.
Yeah, they won't be going through the drought part.
Yes.
Evening, Felix.
Hello, Felix, how are you? Nice to have you with us. So, Neill, will we crack on?
Yes, let's. So what's our main topic for the evening then? Obviously, we're everybody will have seen, no doubt, I'm sure, there's constant news breaking. It seems like every week there's another couple announced all over Scotland, but Islay seems to kind of bear the brunt of it more than most. Obviously, the main topic tonight, we're looking at all the new distilleries that are cropping up. Now, it's happening all over the world, but Scotland obviously kind of is at the epicentre of this. And just this week, we've had another couple announced for Campbelltown, I think, and then news is broken of another one in Islay. So I think, obviously, from a whiskey drinker point of view, this stuff is really exciting, and it's nice to think of all these new whiskies that's going to be out there. New distilleries means more choice, means more variety for us who drink the stuff. But there's obviously more to it than that. You know, it's not just all happy, clappy, sunshine and light when you're constantly putting new businesses into rural communities that are already straining a wee bit, and in many cases straining a lot. So I think it'll be nice tonight just to talk and look at some of the issues surrounding that, and you know, maybe just it's not all positive where the new distilleries are concerned, you know, especially as I say, you know, Islay's already where the infrastructure's concerned and stuff. The ferries aren't the most reliable. The weather certainly isn't. The roads are awful. You know, so constantly shoving new distilleries and new businesses in there is going to, you would think, eventually cause some kind of problem, you know. Well,
I hope that. Well, I mean, it's a fact in the world that the time of the combustion engine, the oil combustion engine, is over. You know, I mean, it is over. It's just that it's taken us, the world, society or whatever, has to take a time to catch up with that. So the car and the lorry and things like that, we need to, they need to look at bringing things in by sea, definitely, Neill, because, you know, the new distilleries. So for people that don't know, we've got on Islay, we have Ardbeg, Lagavulin and Lafroig, and then we've got Bowmore, and then we go down the loch and we've got Bruichladdich, and then on the far side it's Kilchoman, and then up the top end we've got Kalila, Ardnahoe, which is our newest one, and Bunnahabhain. But what has happened is Bruichladdich is tripling in size. Ardbeg has doubled in size. Lafroig is building huge, more warehouses. So it's, I don't know if they're, what do you call it, putting in more things to build bigger, but they're certainly going to be producing more to fill these warehouses. So there's a new distillery, but it's an old distillery getting built at Portellen, where Portellen Distillery used to be at the back of the Maltings there. There's the Farkin Distillery, which is funded by what's the Sukhinder and the online whisky.
Elixir Distillers, is it they're called? Yeah.
That's their project.
Uh-huh.
And then there's another 2 small projects which I don't have any truck with really. There's one at the far end, the other side of Islay. It's so it's over Kilkieran way, and that's going to be a kind of small farm distillery, and it's kind of the what you call it, the architecture of it is round. It's like a broch,
That's right,
brochs. And then there's another one near Glenegadale, so across from the airport, and that's the Islay boys that used to have the Islay ales.
That's
but
right,
both these distilleries will be kind of small distilleries, and I think that to ask, should we have I think the question saying, is it, should we not have more distilleries? That's not the question. I think people need to think about the size of distilleries. I think that's a very important point, because as soon as you start putting something into a place, whether it's a plant, a factory, or whatever, and it's not able to be sustained by A, the infrastructure, or B, what the actual physical locale produces, then you're looking at an imbalance in society and nature and economics and everything. And I think this is a very important point that people need to think about.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And as you say, size is everything in a way. I do think there comes a point as well, maybe where it doesn't matter the size. Maybe there's just enough now, especially in small places like Islay. There's only so much room for more distilleries, you know. Yeah, and if you're planning on putting in something that's going to be producing 1 million or a couple of million litres of alcohol every year, then, you know, that's quite a big undertaking for such a small place that's already supporting 9 working distilleries as it is the now, soon to be 10, soon to be 11, 12, 13, however many more, you know.
It's quite insane, really.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, in our last episode, we talked a lot about sustainability and all that, and how what the industry's doing and what it's looking at to try and go net zero and things. I think the target's by 2040 or something, is it? According to the Scotch Whisky Association.
The other thing that people don't think about in relation to environmental and eco is that people's way of life should be included in that, because there's a big push now for ethical tourism and responsible tourism, right? Which I'm all in favour of. I think that is very, very good. So I think, why have we not got a big push for ethical business and responsible business? We don't seem to have this view of that. It's business seems to be able to do whatever it wants, and everybody goes, that's business, that's capitalism, that's for the, what do you call them, the shareholders. And I'm like, well, no, because that's what's given us global warming and blinging.
Yeah, it's this sort of unchecked capitalism where it's all profit driven and there's no conscience to it, if you like, you know. You're looking for businesses with a conscience, basically, you know. But yeah, I was going to say that about, you know, the net zero thing, where people think of that, you're thinking about sort of the environment, obviously, and it's about, you know, taking out or putting in more than you take out. But that goes for the same with communities and things as well. You know, these distilleries should be putting in more than they're taking out of the local community, you know, whether that be employment or opportunity or improvements to the local area or whatever, you know. That it should benefit the local area. You know, you think of things like, obviously, Bruichladdich are a good example of how many people they've employed on Islay and stuff, you know. And the likes of Springbank and how many people they employ in Campbelltown, things like that, you can look at and say, well, they're benefiting the local area, because they could easily run by not employing so many people, you know. But they're choosing
certainly Springbank for sure, yes. Yeah. Because but there's a problem, you see, in Islay, and it's to do with the government are starting to understand it now. But in Islay, we had something like 0.2 unemployment, where the rest of the country had like 1.6 or something like that. So even in last week's Sealach, there's adverts there from all the distilleries, from Mackie Hotel, looking for staff, you know. But the other thing is as well, Neill, I would like if the distilleries, instead of running cafes and instead of running self-catering, why don't the distilleries just make whiskey and other people could run cafes and other people could run bed and breakfast? Because you see all these jobs they're looking for, summer jobs, people, that's not very sustainable wages. So there's plenty work, but it might not be, I mean, do you know what I mean? You can't
maybe not a career as such.
Not as such. So responsible distilleries, I don't just mean in Islay, I mean everywhere.
No, absolutely, yeah. We've got a couple of interesting questions coming in here. First Phil 1959, it says, with the world concerns on green issues and with all the distillery builds, his worry is the concern with wood to sustain casks for the whisky industry.
For sure, that's a huge. That's why casks are so expensive now.
Well, yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, the Scotch industry kind of washes its hands of that to an extent, because they say, well, we use second-hand casks, you know. So in a way, it's kind of, they can say, well, we're not the ones chopping down the trees, you know. But it shouldn't be that way, obviously, because whereas we rely on those casks as much as other industries. So, yeah, certainly more needs to be done. I know there's a couple of interesting projects going on. I think, is it White and Mackay are looking at Scottish oak and planting forests near Fettercairn Distillery and stuff. But these are very small, sort of experimental projects, and
another thing that
they're a long way off solving that problem, you know what I mean?
Well, yes, because I mean, oak trees need to be, I think, is it 100 years old before they can be cut down? You know, so we should
something like that.
We should have been planting trees a long time ago. But the other thing as well is that is very bad, and I was thinking about this as well, is monocropping, right? Even barley monocropping is bad. It's like rapeseed oil monocropping, bad. Wheat monocropping, bad. So if we're going to start growing a lot more barley, people need to think out big, and they need to be making it, like, putting other things maybe around the edges. I don't know, vegetables. I mean, Islay Estates are doing a nice thing. They're planting sunflowers at Bridge End. You'll see them. You know, now that's lovely. You know, that's nice. But you can't be having taken barley out of the land all the time, out the same field. So old-fashioned husbandry that you get, like Waterford are thinking about husbandry. So that's another issue to do with distilleries. You know, people need to, you can't just think about, oh, I'm going to make money, I'm going to build this box here and make it pretend green with an earth roof and a windmill. You have to think about every aspect of it and take all that into account. You know.
Absolutely, yep. There was another, well, this kind of relates to what we were talking about there a wee bit, but the Whisky Zone asks, another thing with the barley, obviously, more distilleries seem to be stressing the use of locally grown barley. And if these new distilleries go for that same approach, it might have an impact on the farmers.
That's very interesting, Rick, because in Islay, what's happened is there's not very much beef herds anymore. And the distilleries, the Bruichladdich is ostensibly is taken, so it's as though barley farming has taken over from beef farming. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because there's big farms somewhere else and meat coming from other places. So you've not, I mean, I know in the practical terms, it was very difficult for farmers, so much paperwork for moving animals. There's no abattoir really on Islay. You know, things like that. I mean, that's not specifically a distillery issue, but you know, why on earth is animals being taken off Islay? There should be an abattoir on Islay. I mean, it's just ludicrous. But so one good thing about the farmers in Islay was they're maybe losing their beef herds, but they are growing the barley. So that's good here. I don't know what it'll be like in other places.
Yeah.
Another thing in Islay, though, is we don't have a dairy. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a dairy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there used to be, didn't there? Am I right in saying
Yes,
that?
yes. Donny and Aileen McDougall, they had a brilliant, dairy here. Their farm was just over at the back of mine. But it's very, very kind of strange life in Islay at the moment. Too much dependent on distilleries, not enough.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do more things like I think the girl that's doing the sea salt, she's actually down in Porthaven, Islay sea salt. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's a brilliant initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I think small things like that where people are producing things. We really need to start looking more at things like that.
And as you know, the Scotch whisky industry in particular is famously boom and bust. And just because we're in the middle of a boom just now doesn't mean we always will be. So for an island to be so dependent on the industry for its employment, for the farmers to be completely dependent on it, it means that if there is a bust, the effect is catastrophic. Because the whole island's dependent on it, so you're left with an island out of work essentially. As you say, it's better to not to have all your eggs in one basket.
I think as well, people say, in the past there was millions of distilleries, which there were, right? There was small farm distilleries. Now, I'm not against that. I think everybody should be able to produce this. Why not? It's when it's monolithic and it's out of kilter with its environment that I don't see the great benefit of that. I'm quite in favour of lots of small distilleries all over the place where you are working with your environment. So, for instance, I like that distillery Lochlee that John Campbell's gone to. I liked it even before he went there because they're growing around about them. But a nice thing that they're doing is their marketing is making people aware of the turn of the year. So their new whiskey that they're bringing out in, I think, is at the beginning of March or the end of March. This is their spring one. So it's making people aware that this is going to taste of spring. So so I'll know that it's marketing, of course it is, but it's nice because if you had distilleries that were small farm distilleries, the whiskey will change when it's made. Do you know what I mean? So I think this is a nice thing. So you're not drinking the same whiskey all the time. I think these days are boring and gone.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, again, I know we mentioned Springbank earlier, but one of the things I always like about them that people kind of celebrate is the batch variety. Because producing single malt whiskey isn't a continuous thing; it's a batch process. So, and casks are unpredictable, so things shouldn't taste the same all the time. When it's distilled, when the barley was grown, when it was harvested, the type of wood it was in, the temperatures outside for those particular years, whatever, all these things should change the flavour of a whiskey. And I like that idea. I like that. Who wants to drink the same thing all the time? I think that's what people used to do. People used to have their brand, and they would buy the Glenfiddich or whatever every time they went to a shop, and that was the brand, and that's what they enjoyed. Now I think people are looking for variety. They're looking for things to change and evolve. It's interesting you mentioned Lochlee actually, because just over the last couple of weeks, I don't know if people can kind of see behind me there. I've got some of the newer releases of over the last couple of years there. And over the last wee bit, I've tasted them all as they've come out, but I've been sort of going through and tasted some of them side by side and nosing a few side by side over the last couple of weeks. And one thing I would say is the quality is pretty impressive across the board with all these new distilleries. There's so much work being done on how to produce a good whiskey at a young age. And I think everybody's kind of nailing that. I don't really think I've come across one that I've thought was disappointing. I think for the age and for the price you're paying and stuff, you're getting good quality now. But one thing I have noticed with some of them now, bearing in mind most of them are lowlands, I've got at least 3 there that I found all of them very similar. Or you know, they've got their subtle differences, but they're very similar. I think the Linders Abbey, the Clydeside, and there's one there called the King's Inch, which I believe was distilled at Glasgow for somebody else. And all 3 of them carry very sort of similar flavour profiles. Now, interestingly, when I was thinking about that, I did wonder, I think the late Dr. Jim Swan was involved with all 3 of those distilleries, or all 3 of those projects. So I do just wonder if you're seeing a bit of that, his influence, you know, in how these new whiskies should be made. But one of the ones that I thought stood out as being a wee bit unique was the Lochlee. And again, I just wonder if that's, you know, they are distilling from barley that's grown beside the distillery, you know. You're not going to get that flavour anywhere else. It's not going to be in any other whiskey. It's Ayrshire barley grown beside the distillery. You know, and as you said, that's going to change. They're going to have a spring release, a summer release and all this. So it's going to adapt and change with each passing year, with each passing season. I think that's really exciting. And again, it's putting a wee bit of personality into a new young whiskey that's not going to be in all the other new young whiskies, you know. Well, I think as a whiskey drinker, that's something I really appreciate. Do
you think, Neill, that this new light whiskey, I'm calling it light, I'm assuming it's light, is to appeal to a new market of drinkers as well? Do you think that's a conscious decision, or is it just light because it's young and is it all bourbon? Is it bourbon?
I'm assuming they'll all be predominantly bourbon. If there may be some STR, or I think in Lochlee's case there was some PX casks used in things. And yeah,
that was quite similar for you.
I'm not entirely sure about the cask makeup of all of them, but I'd imagine they'd have been similar makeup. Yeah, predominantly bourbon, maybe a wee bit of sherry or something. As I said, they're all really good whiskies. You know, it just struck me that I'm not seeing a great sort of unique personality. Now, give them their due. They're young, you know, and they're only 3 years old. Maybe as these distilleries mature and the whiskies get older, they'll start developing their own wee quirks and their own wee personality and things, you know.
We're going to hear in a wee while from Tamara Wagner, who is one of our students, and she's actually the IWA ambassador in Germany, and she has just brought out a book about whiskey and baking and cooking, and she's done pairings with some of these new whiskies. So she'll be able to talk. I think Torvig was one and something else. So she'll be able to tell us about. Maybe she can. We can ask her about your point there. I was just going to look at some of these questions. I've actually got 21 questions. Have you got more questions on there, Neill?
We've got Fiona mentioning like the Daft Mill seasonal releases. Obviously, they've been doing something similar as well.
Yes, that's right. Daft Mill are brilliant because they're homegrown and
absolutely,
they're a real farm distillery. If they were all like that, you could have hundreds of them. I'm happy with that. Right, hold on. More distilling is good. More distilleries, maybe not so good. That's a concept as well to be thought about. Mm-hmm. Size of distillery is important. And also, why can't we have, like in the past, the cognac, and in the past for distilling, they would have the stills would come round to your place. It's all to do with power and control. I don't agree with these big, huge places. So I'm right in favour of lots more whiskey, because what's happening in Scotland just now as well, Neill, is our whiskey is going to the east.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean, over £1 million for a cask of Ardbeg, not even bottled.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We couldn't afford that when it's bottled. So I think it's like a kind of a donut effect, right? So the whiskey, like our old whiskey's going out like that. So we're building new distilleries to fill this void.
Yeah.
So that's quite an interesting.
Well, I mean, it's funny you mention that, because I saw just again now that this sort of thing has been spoken about lots, and whether it comes to pass will remain to be seen. But the massive growth of Irish whiskey, is catching up, or there's still a long way to go, but there's now, it's forecast by some people that Irish whiskey will overtake Scotch whiskey in the United States, sales-wise, by, I think, is it 2030 or something? If current rates of growth and stuff carry on, Irish whiskey will overtake Scotch in the US. Now, as I said, there's a lot of ifs, buts and maybes in that. Whether that comes to be the case remains to be seen. But I think the US doesn't seem to be such an important market anymore for Scotch whiskey. Obviously it still is to an extent, but so much is being looked to the east, towards Asia, and even to South America and things like that as well. The Brazil, such a huge market.
Yes, for sure. And also an interesting point, and this is something that Scotch distillers really need to pay attention to. There is an English Scotch Marketing Board. That's a good tune. Sorry.
That's all right.
Whoa. That's obviously one of the watchers phoning for the point. They can't get through.
So maybe it's your cat ringing to get in.
There's an English Marketing Board for whiskey, right?
Yeah.
The Irish have banded together, and they had a group. They work together. They've got great crack for the concept of Irish whiskey. And you see, obviously, because of the Irish and Scotch connection in America, and I mean this in a good way, the Irish whiskey is softer, maybe, and gentler. Not all of them, generalising greatly. The American palate will enjoy this. So there are many practical reasons why the statement that you made could come to pass. Scotch whiskey needs to get a grip and become Scotch whiskey and not UK whiskey or anything like that. And we need to band together and bring back the crack, the character of us. We need to come together the way the Irish have come together and the English have come together. And what are we doing? We need to come together and be Scotch whiskey and stand up, because I mean, what a threat that is.
And absolutely,
that I've been going on about for ages, and folk just laugh at you. But they won't be laughing when the money's not coming in.
Well, exactly, yeah. And I remember our guest last time around, John Lamond. Now, I did John's course back in 2014 or something, and I remember him talking about this then, and I think he's been talking about it a lot longer than that, Yeah. He was using the sort of, the Australian wine thing as an example. Australian wine had a campaign that just promoted Australian wine. It wasn't a brand specific thing. It just promoted Australian wine. And the results they got were incredible because of it. And when you look at, we've got the Scotch Whisky Association, who, it's easy to bash the SWA.
Oh, no, I support them.
They do a good job, but their remit is to protect and to conserve what Scotch whisky is now. They're not promoting it as such. Nobody is promoting Scotch whisky as a category. It's the promotion is all left to individual brands who are just going after wherever the biggest market is. And nobody's thinking of the bigger picture and just promoting.
Apart from Neill Whisky Academy, we've tried to do that for a long time.
Absolutely,
because Whisky Academy is not just about Islay whiskey.
Yeah,
it's about
exactly.
Scotch whiskey. And we've always tried to do that, but we need everybody to be on board in that.
Yeah,
because it's very important.
Yeah,
very important. I'm aware of time moving on.
Yeah, there's just a wee comment there from Leanne. She doesn't think the States can compete with the demand the East is having for Scotch whisky. I do question how long the Eastern demand will last. I think that's a fair point. The
Eastern demand will fall when our expensive old casks fall. So they're buying what we've got.
Yeah, the thing in the East, and to an extent Brazil as well, does almost feel a bit kind of flash in the pan.
No, different markets. Oh, totally different markets. No, it's different. It's different.
Well, I just mean that, when something comes on so fast, there's no guarantee of the longevity of it.
It's a different style. In Brazil, it's a brown liquor. In the East, it's your £1 million single cask. It's a totally different market. So they're buying up our old expensive whiskey. It's like that level of market there. That's the...
Yeah. As Leanne says there, it's planning for steady growth is smarter than reactionary to quick growth. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's some folk might say that's why we've got so many distilleries.
Yeah.
But you see, this is another thing. This is what we should all have readdressed during COVID. Growth is not always the answer, and growth is what has given us blinking global warming and everything like that. We need to be like Anthony Wills. Anthony Wills, he has put in another 2 stills and another mash tun, but he's interested now in developing quality, not quantity. And that's very interesting and very important.
Yeah.
Refining to the nth degree what he's doing, working and improving with that. I really like that aspect of Anthony.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely, first of all, you're absolutely right. Right, wait a minute. If business people, they should be the first thing a distillery has to answer. We need more travel by sea. We've talked about that. Yes, not taking all the tourist money. We've talked about that. How does Campbelltown? Yeah, it's quite interesting in Campbelltown what's happening. I'm interested in the... Well, it depends. Yes, and the short answer is yes.
I think time will tell. I suppose,
going forward, yes.
Yeah, time will tell. But yeah, I mean,
time
we could
will
be
tell. That's
a
diplomatic answer. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
think that's called sitting on the fence.
Sitting on the. Well, which brings us very neatly to what do you call it? North Star Spirits and the Campbelltown Distillery. That's very interesting because if Ian sits on the fence any longer, he'll split his trouser. I'm interested in his distillery, and I'm interested in Alistair Day's distillery in Campbelltown because I think probably Campbelltown could probably do with distilleries because I don't think they've got maybe the work that we've got in Islay. So, but the thing is, they need to make them from the inside out and very, very much work with the communities.
Yeah.
Because think about the roads, and folk will say, "Oh yes, in the past they had 396 million distilleries. In the past, it all came by the sea.
Yeah,
it came by the sea. It didn't come down a wee road.
Yeah.
So they'll need to think about that. They'll need to think about their distilleries in context.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know Campbelltown anywhere near as well as I know Islay. I've been. But I mean, even when I was there, which again, I think 2015, 16, there seemed to be quite a lot of sort of empty buildings in the town centre and things like that. So again, investment, new businesses coming to the town should be a good thing, and I wouldn't say they're anywhere near the saturation point that Islay's already at,
No, not at all. No, I think it's good. Yeah.
There was a good question here actually, and I think we forgot to get it earlier. It's sustainability. How is electricity generated on Islay, and how will new load growth?
Because electricity was one of my points.
Right,
I've got all these, and then I get distracted.
I know.
You're meant to go through it in order, and I get carried away. Electricity comes from the mainland, ridiculous, and so it comes by a wire that is insulated by Pirelli, and if the weather is inclement, it breaks down. And it is a oil fire generated, which is absolutely shocking. So there should be these projects that are going ahead to develop renewable energy and using sound, the power of the tidal waves, and the sound and maybe doesn't need to be windmills. There can be different ways, but they need to use the electricity at source, because as soon as you start using Scotland as a power keg for England and then getting sold off from England to Europe, which is what's happening, you might generate, for example, 3 million megawatts or whatever. By the time it gets to wherever it's going, they only get 60 megawatt. Do you know what I mean? If you can generate electricity at a source, and power is a very important point, and we should be generating renewable energy here to power the distilleries, and the distilleries should be funding research into that, and there should be a lot more interaction between the distilleries as together as a group, I think. Mm-hmm.
I think we're starting to see a wee bit of that, but not anywhere near enough. So hopefully we'll see a bit more of that. And again, a lot of these new distillers coming in, new distilleries, hopefully maybe some of them might bring some new ideas on how to do things as well, you know. So
and they'll be because they're smaller. I'm hoping. Well, not as much in Islay. Well, maybe the Islay boys and the one round the west of Islay. But I hope that they'll be like a yacht, and it can turn quickly to a new plan rather than a super tanker that keeps going for 3 miles before it can turn outdated. You know.
Yep.
I'm aware that we're running on, and we have our lovely guest.
I know. Poor Tamara's been sitting waiting.
I'll let Neill, can you please introduce our lovely guest?
I will. So Tamara is obviously, she's a member of the kinship. She's a student of the Islay Whisky Academy. I believe she's due to come over to one of the residential courses early this year. But she's also, I mean, her Instagram handle, I believe, is Bottle and Barrel. And it's worth following her because she seems to be involved in so many interesting projects, whether that's home brewing or baking or distilling her own spirits, or she just seems to have a hand in everything, and it's all fascinating. So, but she's here really to talk about her most recent project, which is maybe the most exciting of the lot. So we'll bring her in. Good evening.
Hi Neill. Hi Rachel. Good evening.
Thanks for joining us.
Tamara. We're delighted to have you with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, can you tell everybody about your book? Tamara has just, is it published or is it just getting published?
No, it's not yet published. So I have it here, of course. So it's just German, but we have German viewers as well. So it's cooking and baking with whiskey. So not necessarily food and whiskey pairings, but when you put whiskey in your food, you can have a dram of that with the food as well.
Nice.
And yeah, it's everything from starters, main dishes, sweet treats, sauces, chutneys, and also some ideas for drinks as well. And the German version is nearly finished, and I could start in a few days or weeks, but I want to wait for the English version as well to have them published nearly at the same time. And there the proofreading reading just started, so it's not that fast now. But you both know it's just a personal project. And the day job is always first, so it's just some hours a week I can work on it.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it would be maybe like by the end of the summer, or?
I hope much earlier. So as I said, I have the proofreading already started. Some administration stuff needs to be figured out as well, because within the EU it's quite easy, but to bring it to you, it's not so easy. So I hope you two will get one in 4 weeks. But
we could have it for sale, Tamara, at the open day in June the 2nd. That was possible. I would love that.
Yeah, me too. We should talk about in March when I visit you.
To work too. So, Tamara, what have you made for us with the new whiskies? Like, have you got 2 new whiskies that we were talking about, or that you can? What?
Yes, I have 1 new whiskey only. It's a Torawake Alt Glen, and you can easily pair, I think, any whiskey just with cheese or chocolate. It's always good. But you can also think about contrasting or complementing the particular whiskey. And this is what I've done for today. So 2 different pairings, but for 1 whiskey, because one is more complementing, one is more contrasting. Maybe first some notes to to the Turreweg. It's a heavily peated whiskey, which is also very maritime, so a lot of saltiness and seaweed. But I personally, that's always a personal thing, get a lot of lemon out of it. So not just cold ashes or so, but also really freshness. And I hope you can see it. The complementing stuff are some fish bites. So I marinated the fish first for a couple of hours and used the whiskey, lemon juice, and herbs, and some olive oil. And also the batter has some lemon juice in it. And that's quite easy because it's both maritime, so it matches well. Both has this lemon singiness with it, and the whiskey is also quite mouth-filling already on its own. But with this quite fatty fish bites, it's also even more coated in the whole mouth.
I was going to ask you, because I've not tried it yet, Tamara. Is it got quite an oily mouthfeel then? Does it remind you a wee bit of Bruichladdich? Or because it sounds a wee bit like a Bruichladdich, a wee bit there, but if it's got an oily mouthfeel, or is it quite light because it's young? I'm trying to think of the height of the hill.
It's very, very young, but it's not harsh in it. So the alcohol is quite get integrated. Maybe a Bruichladdich, but I think it's even more brine, so more salt, more maritime.
Interesting.
I haven't tried.
Are there stills high? Neill, can you remember?
I can't remember. I haven't tried that one, but I tried the first one, the Legacy, I think it was, the first one. I thought it was one of those kind of deceiving ones where it's quite a light spirit, I think now I'm trying to, this is from memory, but I seem to remember it being quite light on the palate, but because it's so peaty, you don't notice that, if you know what I mean, because it's quite intense still. There is a kind of, because it's obviously it's unchill filtered as well, so you're getting the kind of natural oils and stuff, but it's not the heaviest of spirits. It's not like a Lagavulin or maybe even an Ardbeg. It's lighter than it made me think maybe more of a young Kulila or something like that. I was thinking of maybe.
Okay.
Or a very, very light Lafroig, some maybe even because there's some hospital notes as well, so medicinal notes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
but not as much as Lafroig, so it's not an Islay malt. You can easily tell.
Yeah. Okay, and so see the fish goujongs or whatever. What word would you use? Not goujongs, because that's French, isn't it? What would you call them? What do you call the wee dish that you made, Tamara, in German?
I have it's not a German dish, obviously, so I just called it Fischhappen, so maybe a direct translation.
Okay.
I eat it usually as fish and chips, but I prefer not to have a whole fish fillet, but to make smaller bites. For lunch, I put it in a salad, so just 3 of them, and this was also fine, so I do not need potatoes always with them.
Lovely. Yeah. So it's like you could have that as a wee nibble with your dram. So it doesn't. Right. It's a light. It's like a wee nibble you could serve if you were like at lunchtime or something. Maybe if you were outside, it would be nice.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, it's they are very nice when they are cold as well. I wasn't very sure about this if I would have to put them in the oven to warm them up. But they are really good, so I will make them for picnics, I think, as well.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of, a picnic style. And share the other one, the contrast one.
The contrasting, or not only contrasting, it's a crème brûlée.
Oh,
lovely.
So, and this one is obviously the sweetness is balancing the smoke really good. So it's working together. So it's not too sweet with the creme brulee, and also not too smoky with a whiskey, but a very nice balance.
Yeah.
But on the creme brulee, this burnt sugar gives again some bitterness, and also for the mouthfeel another dimension, because it's so crunchy. And this works really well. And also I mix the sugar with a little bit of salt, so to have some salted caramel on top. And this also is not contrasting but complementing the whiskey. So there are the different
many layers.
Many layers. Yeah, right. It's very multifaceted.
Yeah. Well done. Oh my goodness.
I love the sound of it. I like that, when you're pairing things, I like the sort of contrasting thing. When you get two things that almost don't sound like they should go together, but when you add them together, they make something new and really exciting. That sort of, I almost prefer that there's more of a skill in that, I think, than just picking two things that share some flavors. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
You can pick two things that go, well, that'll probably go with that. But finding that sort of magical combination, I think, is where the real skill is,
I think, Tamara, I think your book is a lot deeper than many of the books because they talk about pairing with whiskey, but what they, cooking with whiskey, but they may know this will taste nice with this dram, sort of. Whereas, or you put this dram in this sauce, which anyone can kind of do. But I think what you've done is you've deconstructed the whiskey and deconstructed the dish and built a bridge between them, which I find a lot more interesting.
Not necessarily in the book, and I kept it quite simple, because not all of the readers are so whiskey geeks as we are, and this is why I put categories of whiskey, only 5 of them. So I have it's sweet whiskey or fruity whiskey, spicy, maritime, and smoky. So not even the combinations, because that makes it much easier to think about recipes and not say you need to have this special or particular Torrevake to pair it with something like this. I think this would be not realistic.
No, brilliant. That's there you are, Felix. Yeah, so are we.
Cheers, Felix.
We've got more famous people in the academy.
And Rick also.
Rick. I posted about the book on LinkedIn as well, and was contacted by a guy from the US, so a German one who lives there since decades already. So let's fingers crossed that it will be possible to get it in the States as well.
Fantastic.
But it's even more difficult than UK.
Yes. Well, Tamara, thank you so much. I wish that you were here with us so that we could taste these things and not just look at them.
Thank you very much.
Well, Neill, I think that was a brilliant round off with because you see, if we didn't have that new distillery, Tamara wouldn't have been able to make that new dish. So I think we could end on a positive note.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we had to find something positive to say. I'll let you go just now, Tamara. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll
Thank you very much.
Again.
Cheers. Have a nice evening. Cheers.
See you later, Tamara. Thank you.
So
that was great. I really enjoyed hearing about
delicious. I can't wait to see the book as well, because I am not a cook at all, but maybe this will be the thing that inspires me. I can certainly get on board with the whiskey aspect of it anyway. Just before we kind of sign off, I thought maybe is there anything what's coming up for the academy then, Rachel? What have we got happening this year other than the Fagila, obviously? What courses have we got coming up, and is there any spaces left on anything? Or?
Yes. So we've got a diploma week at the end of April. And Nikki was working on that today, and it turns out that we have got some spaces, because I thought it was full. So I was writing full when I was saying it. But no, it's not. So there are a couple of spaces. So if anyone wants to come to that or to tell their friends about it, so that's the last week in April. Wait, and I'll just tell you the exact dates. So that will be April the 25th to the 29th. And if you come, you're welcome to stay with us on the Sunday night and also on the Saturday night as our guest. So you've got the whole week. And then the next ones that we'll do is in September. And the dates for September is the 26th to the 30th of September, and that's the same. You can stay as our guest from the 25th to the 1st of October, and then the last week in October is our traditional one, from the 24th to the 28th of October. So, there's still places on these ones.
Good. Okay.
I wasn't saying they were full.
That's good. Okay, and if people want to contact, what's the email address again?
So email is info@islawwhiskeyacademy.scot, and we're doing also, if you want to come and bring your whiskey group or your work or anything like that, we will actually curate special Isle of Whisky Academy diplomas for you. So that's a special thing, and that can be hosted at any time. Obviously, it's a slightly different price range because it's structured around you, but the kind of educational level is the same. It's just, it's, you can come when you decide, and we can do more focus. So say that you were more interested, your people were interested in blending or maturation, whereas normally we focus on just the production and the elements. So we can kind of tweak it to suit you.
Excellent. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, if you were a member of a whiskey group or something like that, that would be absolutely brilliant. To all come together at the same time. I mean, it's one of the great things about the academy is when you meet people from all over the world, and the whole thing with the kinship is that we want everybody to stay in touch afterwards. So that is kind of part of the magic of it all. But it would be lovely coming over as a group as well and having that shared experience with people you're already in touch with, I suppose. That might take
and then you see anyone that becomes a student either through the online course, or through coming on the diploma. So Neill is our kinship host, so that means that on Facebook at the moment, that's our platform for holding everybody together. We're aware that not everybody can use that, and further on we'll maybe try and find another medium as well. But Neill is the host of that, so Neill keeps you all right and looks after you. And you're automatically invited to become a member, if you're a student of the academy in any shape or form.
Yep. And that includes if you do the digital course, the Whisky Affinity, the online version of that.
Which volume 2 is, we're nearly there, and then we had to start doing all this stuff for the face, but we're getting there. We're getting there with volume 2. Volume 2 is called Alchemy of Distilling, and it focuses on production, and it's very exciting. And I am nearly there. I'm going to be draft 3 or something.
As we said earlier, it's quality over quantity, so it's better to make sure it's good than quick, isn't it?
I will.
There's Felix. There's a good note to end on. If you haven't been on a residential course, do it.
Thank you very much, Felix. That's a lovely recommendation.
Felix, the check's in the post.
Yes. Big photo of whiskey sent to Felix. So, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And Neill and I will be on again. This is February. It'll be in March, and then we're hoping to have a IWA live from the Faish in May. So there'll be March, April, which will probably be from the Academy, and then
Mm-hmm.
May will be from, I hope it'll be in our open day. So that'll be
Yep.
a different, it won't be on a Wednesday, it'll be on a Thursday, but
Yep, yep.
I'm hopeful that we can make that happen.
Yeah,
So
that
Neill,
could
it
be
was
fun.
lovely to speak with you, and thank you very much. And thank you to everybody for joining in and your comment. And I just want to say a big shout out to Alex Livingston. I'm so happy you could join us. Slán Thank
Thanks, everyone. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.